about bullying, you can go to the chat box and put the check next to my name and ask a question. And at the end of the lesson, we will have a chance to go over those questions, and Mr. Rushton will be able to answer some of those for you, okay? So we're going to go ahead and start. Mr. Rushton, if you could introduce yourself and start your presentation.
All right, well, welcome. And I appreciate having an opportunity to be here. I'm Mr. Rushton, and I see a lot of elementary kids here. I think, I taught fifth grade for several years, and I'm an assistant principal at an elementary school in Killeen. So I work with kids. I've done that for over 20 years. So I've been working with kids a long time. And I hope some of what I shared today will help you guys know, maybe what bullying is and what you can do if you're bullied or if you see someone that's being bullied. And I know you can't tell by looking at the screen, but I have somewhat of a disability, which means I have some physical challenges. I get around with a cane and sometimes crutches. And, when I was your age, there wasn't a lot of conversations to kids about people that were different. We probably do a little better job of that today with diversity and recognizing that not everybody is the same. So when I was coming up, there was a lot of, we called it teasing in those days. They didn't really say bullying. That wasn't really the word. But I didn't like it. And I didn't really care much for elementary school. It got a little better as I got older. Middle school was much better, and then high school was even better than that. So even though things may seem challenging for you, believe it or not, they typically get better because kids grow up, kids learn how to behave typically, and then they don't do that thing anymore. But certainly you want to figure out what we can do now to help. And I've got a PowerPoint. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about what bullying is, and then maybe we can talk about some strategies or things to help you guys be successful, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. See if I can't get this PowerPoint going. All right, can you guys see that okay? Hopefully thumbs up. All right, let's talk a little bit about it. Believe it or not, adults have been very concerned about bullying in the schools in the last several years, because sometimes we just think it's not happening, or, oh, it's no big deal, or boys will be boys, or girls will be girls. And that's just part of it. And there's a little bit of truth in that, but sadly, some people have been really harmed because of bullying, and nobody likes being uncomfortable about going to school or being around other people. And if those things get in the way because of another student, then that really is what bullying is. That first slide says, I'm going to kind of read it to you. Let me pull this to the side so I can see. Bullying, according to the state of Texas, is done by one or more students and is directed at another student that it exploits an imbalance of power. And what that means is if somebody's bigger than you, or older than you, or stronger than you, or can exert power over you, and you don't feel like you have power, then that's bullying. An imbalance of power is subjective, which means it's hard to define. Even as adults, we have to be really careful, because sometimes people can just be mean, or they can say something that's not nice. And that's not necessarily bullying. That's just somebody not being nice and not treating you well. But the problem is if it happens over time, or it really makes you feel unsafe, like you can't be yourself, or you're scared to go to school, or you're scared to go to the cafeteria, those kinds of things, that's different. That really is bullying. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. It could be physical contact. Now, and they listed a bunch of things here. If somebody's pinching you, or poking you, or punching you, or hitting you, or slapping, or any of these things, that's bullying. And that's not tolerated. And sometimes it's hard for us to recognize that, that is bullying, and we should tell an adult and let somebody know. But it also could be verbal. In other words, the things that we say. If we're calling people names, we're making fun of them because of the way they look, or their skin color, or their religion, you know, and we don't feel comfortable, or they're going to, you know, take some of the, I'm not going to be your friend if you're this, that, or the other thing, then again, that's bullying. And again, and if it makes us feel so uncomfortable that we really need to report it. Now, again, sometimes people will just say mean things, and we have to have what's called resilience a little bit. Resilience is a big word, but it means that, you know, if somebody says something, it's not going to affect us. But even people that are resilient over time can lose that resilience and feel uncomfortable and feel like that they're not safe. Sometimes it can be things that we say, like if we put a note in somebody's desk that says, I'm going to hurt you, or I'm going to kill you. If you say that in Killeen ISD, you're going to go to what's called alternative school. And I know, because I'm the alternative schools where the kids go that are bad, right? They can't stay in a regular classroom, and they come see me. I'm the hearing officer for our district, for Killeen ISD. And if somebody says that, or if they put it in an email or on Facebook or YouTube, that's cyberbullying. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Then they come see me, and they could be removed. So sometimes it can be just one time somebody says something that's bullying, and that reaches a threat level where they could be removed from the class. And so, of course, if somebody says something like, I'm going to kill you, you know, then you really need to tell an adult and make them aware. And of course, you don't want to be the person that says that. And to be fair, I know there used to be a time where people would say things like that, and they didn't really mean it. They would just say it. And we kind of let it go. But sadly, it's today, sometimes people are not right up here, and they'll say things like that. We have to step in, and it's better to be safe than sorry and give a consequence. Even if you didn't mean it, you don't ever want to say that. And if somebody says that to you, then you need to tell an adult. So there's different ways that we can bully. One is through what's called electronic means. And I know everybody, you know, has a phone or a computer, almost everybody. And so it's really easy. Sometimes we say things. You know, we're safer, they're not going to get us or whatever, but you don't ever want to put anything in the computer that threatens somebody, threatens to hurt them, because that's basically something that's out in the computer forever. And people can take a screenshot, or they can bring it to the school and say, look what so-and-so did. And it's really easy to prove that it happened because it's on the web. It's in an email, it's on YouTube. And I've seen kids come to me that they said, well, I didn't really mean it, but they made threats and they posted on YouTube, or they airdropped it, which means they put it in their phone, hit a button, and everybody in the cafeteria can see it. Just a click of a button. So you just got to be really careful. Technology is amazing. We wouldn't be having this meeting. I live out in the country. There's only cows around my house. I don't have anybody but me out here. And yet I can hold this meeting with you guys because of Zoom and technology. So it is an amazing thing, but it's also unsafe sometimes when we use it to hurt other people or make threats against other people. And so if anybody does that, you let them know, and certainly you don't want to do that. And it says here things like recording a fight, posting it on, you know, videos, or just embarrassing someone. I know nobody would do this, but sometimes people will take pictures of somebody in the bathroom, and then they'll put it up on YouTube. And I hope I'm not giving anybody ideas, but you don't ever want to do something like that. Sometimes that can be so bad that the police would get involved. And because we don't take pictures of people using the bathroom ever.
I got a question. What if they do it in accident, but because someone else did something rude to them?
Did what by accident?
Like if someone did something rude to them, they might be angry, and they would say a mean word to them.
Okay, and that's a really good question. Remember, there's a difference between being mean and being rude and being bullied. But there are certain phrases, if somebody says, I'm going to kill you, and you say, well, I'm going to kill you too, that reaches a level in public schools today where people are going to get in trouble, even if you didn't mean it. So you just don't ever want to say that. If somebody says you're a poo-poo head and you say you're a poo-poo head back, you know, that's different, of course, right? And I know that's kind of silly, but those kinds of things don't reach the same level as threatening somebody's harm or life. And I know at 9 and 10, we're probably not thinking about that, but sometimes people say things. Investigate and know that, you know, that what the intention was, but you just can't say stuff like that in schools because of what could happen. And if somebody says something like that to you, you got to walk away. And we'll talk about some strategies a little bit later, okay? But that's a great question.
I got a question.
Okay, another question. I love questions. What is it?
Let's do one question, and then just a reminder, go to the
We can
chat
do it at
box
the end,
if you
too.
have questions, and then at the end, we'll all get to them, okay?
Yeah. Let's go ahead, tell me your question, and then we'll move on.
So what if someone threatens what if someone threatens another person and then they like put it on YouTube?
What do you mean they put it on you? I don't really understand. You see somebody threaten somebody else and you're a witness? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a great question. We're going to hold that thought. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, okay?
Okay.
But let me get through this and then we'll talk about some of the things that we can do. But these are good questions because I know this stuff happens to you at school or in the neighborhood or something. All right, so what does it look like? You know, anything where you physically harms a student or damages their property. If you know, break their bicycle at school or, you know, break something that's theirs, you know, take their phone and throw it against the ground or something like that, or anything that hurts somebody, you know, bruising, cut, those kind of things. Hopefully we'll never see that, but it doesn't have to be just physical harm. It can be also, you know, damaging people's property or their computer.
Okay.
Really feel like there are some strategies there. Or if you come to school tomorrow, I'm going to beat you up. That's bullying. If somebody tells, it's a threat and it's bullying. And anything that makes you feel like you don't want to come to school, and I've seen kids that they don't want to come to school because they don't feel safe. And our number one responsibility at school is to make kids feel safe, and we do everything we can to do that. All right. Again, let's see here. I'm going to move this over so I can read there we go. There we go. The target, which means a student of bullying, feels intimidated at school, and as a result, the school environment is not a safe place for them. So again, if they're afraid to go to class, then you know that's bullying. If it's because somebody else said something, you feel like they're going to get you up, or get you to school, or if you come to school tomorrow, I'm going to get you. That's bullying. Or you could put something, if somebody puts something in an email or, you know, on chat or Schoology or some of these other platforms. We have so many different platforms now. I had a student that was threatening the teacher on Schoology. I don't know if you remember, but last year we all attended virtually. So nobody was at school. And one of the kids was saying things he shouldn't be saying. And he came to alternative school for that because he was making threats on his computer. And he'd never been in trouble before, but I guess he thought it was funny, and it's not funny. All right, so again, these are just some more examples: getting pushed around, or you know, refusing to sit with them, or calling them whatever, you know, especially over time. And another thing is sometimes the bullying isn't just at school anymore. And a lot of schools would say, well, it didn't happen here, we're not going to do anything about it. But if you're bullied online, or if there's bullying going on and it comes into the school where you don't feel safe, even though they were threatening you at your house, but you feel unsafe at school, then you can get in trouble for that. That makes it kind of hard on schools because they have to prove that stuff. But anything that affects the educational process or the operation of the school, even if it didn't happen at school, can get you consequences at school. Or by the same token, we can do our best to help you. You know, sometimes the police get involved if it's serious enough. But the reality is that things don't just happen inside the classroom. Sometimes they happen walking home. Sometimes they happen on the bus, which is still part of the school system. Sometimes they happen online, and that's a big one. Just because you're at home and you say something threatening to another student in your class, or they do it to you, you can get trouble at school. And I've seen that happen, and kids come to alternative school for that.
I got a question.
Hang on to your question until the end, okay? We're going to get through this pretty quick, I promise. All right. The bullying or impact of the bullying restricts the right of the target who's being bullied. For example, a student is afraid to go to the restroom or try out on a team because of being bullied. Somebody, you know, just says anything where you don't feel like you can go to the restroom or be, you know, on cheerleading or on the football team. Again, that's bullying. All right, so we've kind of spent a little time on what bullying looks like, and it's
Everybody's done. They're just talking about bullying.
but bottom line is if you feel bullied or you feel unsafe or you feel uncomfortable, you need to tell an adult. And that's what we're going to talk about, what you can do. The first thing you need to do is you need to talk to an adult. Maybe it's your teacher, maybe it's a counselor or assistant principal. Maybe it's, well, of course, your parents, you know, come home and talk to your parents, or maybe an older brother or somebody. Don't just hold it in. And I think some of the saddest things, and I'm not going to get into all that, but some of the saddest things that happen to people, they feel like they can't do anything, and then they harm themselves rather than trusting someone or telling someone. And parents were like, we didn't even know they were bullied, or we didn't even know there was anything going on at school. So you got to talk to your parents, even if you feel like it's tattling. It's better to be safe than sorry. You know, you got to tell someone, and then maybe they can help you tell the difference between when you're being bullied and when someone is just being mean. The other thing sometimes, and this is hard to do, but it can happen, is maybe you stay away from the places where there is bullying happening. Maybe there's some groups of kids at school that it's just better to stay away from. You know, when I was coming up, there were certain groups of kids, I never went over to where they hung out because I didn't want to get into a situation that, you know, they might harm me or even, you know, make fun of me or whatever. So I just stay away from them. You can't always do that in the classroom or the bathroom, but, you know, sometimes some of the worst things happen because people are at places where this kind of stuff happens. You know, especially this is true as you get older. You know, stay away from places that are just unsafe. You know, 2 o'clock in the morning at a convenience store is probably not a good idea, but just saying. And you can, you know, choose, it's not on here, but choose your friends well too. If you have friends that make fun of you or talk about you or talk about other people, they're not very good friends. So you need to have friends that will treat you right. And sometimes that's hard because it's not easy to make friends. It's better to have 1 or 2 close friends than 20 acquaintances or 20 people that you know, in my opinion. I have lots of acquaintances. I know hundreds of people, but I only have a couple of people that I really am friends with, where I trust them enough to tell them what's going on in my life or what you can do to help. So just be careful about that. The people you hang around really do make a difference in who you are. When you see bullying, there are safe things you can do to make it stop. And somebody kind of asked that question earlier, what if you see it? And sometimes it's really easy for us to just keep our mouths shut and not say anything. Or sometimes we may even laugh too when somebody says something. But if we're laughing at somebody else who's being bullied, we're kind of helping. if we got to be strong, we have to have courage and say, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. And I know sometimes that means the bully may turn themselves, what they're doing to somebody else, to you. But, we have to have courage. We have to believe that we have to stand up for others. And that's part of the problem with bullies, is that they feel like they can say something and nobody's going to do anything to stop it. It doesn't mean we have to, fight other people and do that kind of thing, but we can use our words and say, that's not right, or you're bullying him. Sometimes bullies don't even know they're bullying, because maybe they were bullied by somebody else and now they're doing to other people what was done to them, and they don't even know that it's wrong. They might know, they should know, but sometimes they don't. And we should always be kind to those who are being bullied, because there's nothing worse than being bullied by one kid, but everybody jumps in and laughs or becomes part of it, a group bullying. So you have to show them that you care by trying to include them, sit with them at lunch or on the bus, talk to them at school, or invite them to do something, just hanging out with them. And that's the problem with people that get bullied. They feel like nobody cares about them. And so they don't do anything except suffer alone, and they shouldn't. We can be courageous, we can be brave, and we can stand up for those who are being bullied. Even if it's telling another adult, if we don't feel safe stepping in, we can tell an adult and saying, hey, that kid is bullying my friend or this other student. That's not tattling, that's reporting. And there is tattling. Tattling is, he looked at me, he walked by me. Those are tattling things. But when people are bullying, we should tell, we should report. We talked a lot about cyberbullying. Bullying doesn't always happen in person. It happens in text messages or in emails. And we have to step forward. If somebody sends you a text or an email or something like that, you need to show it to an adult. Maybe you're reading it wrong, or maybe it's not what you think it is, but an adult can help you with that. And be careful about giving your passwords to other people or kids, because they can use your accounts to bully other people. And then whose name is on the account? Yours is. So don't ever give out your passwords to others, even if you think they're your friends. I don't ever give my passwords to anybody at work, even though I trust them with everything that I have. But the problem is that your passwords, your computers, all those things, everything you do on a computer, especially at school, well, even at home, can be traced. So don't ever give passwords out, because they could abuse it. Think about who sees what you post online. You post it on there, it's out there forever. And sadly, people that are 30, 40, my age, people that don't like them will find things that they said 20 or 30 years ago and use it against them, even though they've grown up or they've changed. And then they could lose a job or a friend, or even just their reputation. And reputations are important. And again, keep your parents in the loop. Let them know what's going on. Tell them what you're doing online. And really, you shouldn't be doing online stuff in your bedroom by yourself. Those are just not good ideas. Make sure you use computers in a public place. And if it's in your house, it should be a common room where everybody can see what you're doing and what people can do to you. I know that's not always easy, especially when we have tablets and we have all kinds of devices that are so portable. That's hard, but you shouldn't be doing this under your covers in your bed. Should not be online. So work that out with your parents so they can help you. Again, if somebody, there's some strategies you can use if somebody bullies you. You can look at a kid bullying you and tell them to stop in a calm, clear voice. Just say stop and see if that works. Sometimes you can kind of just play it off by joking. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And if speaking up seems too hard or not safe, walk away and just stay away. If you fight back, and that I see this a lot, kids are like, well, he hit me first, so I hit him too. That's still a fight. Especially at school where there's adults almost everywhere. All the time, kids will say, well, he hit me first, so I hit him back. My mom says I can hit. It's a little different rules in the schools than it is in the neighborhood. If somebody hits you, you tell an adult. They'll look at that to see if there was no one that could help you. But a lot of times things like that happen in the hallways or in the cafeteria or in the PE room, and there are adults there that you can say, hey, look, he just hit me. Most of the time we hit because we want to get back, not because we're defending ourselves. So just be careful about that. Find an adult and stop the bullying immediately. But the biggest thing we need to do is we just need to treat everybody with respect. Nobody should be mean to others. Nobody should find happiness in the sadness of others. We don't make jokes about other people, what they look like, how tall they are, how skinny they are, how fat they are. We're all God's children. He loves us all. And so we need to treat everybody the way we want to be treated. And then that way we wouldn't have any bullying. Always stop and think before you say or do something that could hurt someone. If you feel like being mean to someone, find something else to do. Play a game, watch TV, or talk to a friend. Sometimes people are mean to us, so we think it's okay to be mean to other people. It's not. Talk to a trusted adult. They can help you find ways to be nice. Sometimes people are just nice people and others have to work at it. But all of us can try. And you'll actually get more friends if you're nicer to people than trying to be a friend to someone by making fun of somebody else. We're all different. No one's better or worse. We're just different. And if you think you bullied someone, tell them you're sorry. Everyone feels better when we apologize. Remember, often bullies were bullied themselves. Somebody bullied them, and so now they think it's okay because that just is what's normal in their life. All right, well, that's everything I have. I think that was about a half an hour. Okay, I know some of you had some questions. I'd be more than willing to answer them if you have any questions.
All right, if you want to take yourself off mute, there you go, and go ahead and answer your question or ask your question, hon.
What if somebody's lying?
What if somebody's what?
Lying.
Well, sometimes people lie and tell things. When I investigate as an administrator, if somebody says that they said something, it's usually we have to have another witness, somebody else that can, unless it's put in the computer, and that's hard to lie. That's hard to take back. But if somebody's lying on you and it's your word against them, you're probably not going to get in trouble. You just probably need to stay away from them. They may keep an eye on things. They may even, I've done what's called stay away orders where you can't be around that person. But hopefully no one will lie on you and you won't get in trouble because somebody lied on you. And usually we have to, like in the court of law, you can't just say lie on someone and then getting in trouble. There has to be another witness or somebody that saw it. That's a good question though. Just tell the truth and everyone will believe you more than the other person who's caught lying. If I catch somebody lying, I don't always trust them for a long time. So always tell the truth and then people will believe you. Good question. Any other questions?
I had one that I thought might be good for parents. What are some positive things that you can do if your child is being bullied and you're trying to have that dynamic where everyone's coming to terms with how it's going to stop? How can everyone, because it's a fiery subject for moms and dads, if your child is being bullied, how do you advocate for them in a peaceful way that promotes some safety in the future?
That's a great question. Typically when I talk to parents, it's reactionary. They're already up, they're upset, they're elevated, they're not rational. They'll come in, you better do something, blah, blah, blah. It's better to, let's say it happens at school. It's better to say, ideally face-to-face, sit down with a school administrator and say, hey, look, this is what's going on in the classroom according to my son. I'm not there. It's not that you don't want to believe your child. It's just that you're not there. So you don't know everything. And a child is always going to put things in their best light. We all do that anyway. I mean, we go to work and we go to church and we all want to put our best foot forward. So sometimes kids will say things that's not the whole truth, or they'll tell you their side, what they said, but maybe they were saying things too. So give the administrator some time to investigate and find out what happened. It's particularly good if you come in and you say, look, there's a couple of his friends that saw this happen. There's a couple witnesses that can kind of vouch for what your child is saying. But you can also, let them investigate, and then maybe even if you come up with some can you keep an eye on my son, or, he can't sit by this particular student. This is becoming an issue, maybe in the cafeteria or in the line, so come with a solution is always wonderful too. And, most administrators.
What if someone was joking? Like, what if someone was joking to another person, but they were just saying it for fun?
Sometimes you're just joking, but you got to be careful that jokes hurt people. And so if somebody tells you, I got a fly that's bothering me around here, but if you say that, an administrator will say, okay, well, it depends on what you said. If you say, I'm going to kill you, and you say, but I was just joking, you can't say that whether you're joking or not. But if you're making fun of them or something, I'm just joking, then you need to learn that's not right. There still may be a consequence. But a lot of times a good administrator will take that into account to see what it's called intent. What were you trying to do with what you were saying? But you can still hurt people even if you don't mean to. Somebody runs a red light and hits another car. Well, I didn't mean to hit that car, but you did because you went through a red light. You said something you shouldn't have said, or you did something. If you hit somebody at school, I was just joking, I was just playing, but you still hit somebody. But it's getting back to the strategies. You got, just work with the administration, try not to, overreact, which is hard to do because I'm the same way. I've got 6 kids of my own and I don't want my kids picked on or harmed or hurt in any way. But try to give those who are involved opportunities to make it right. And, half the time they're not even aware it's going on, a teacher, but once they're made aware and they don't do anything about it, then that's the time to really kind of take it to the next level. And we do have opportunity. I mean, in the public schools, you could have a kid you could have your child removed to another class. You could actually get them to another school if you wanted to. So, I mean, there's things that could be done. And I think once administrators and teachers are aware of what's going on, they keep an eye on it a lot more closely. And usually it stops. I rarely see things move forward after parents have been involved and teachers and administrators are involved. Usually kids kind of learn, and it ceases. The biggest thing is just not to overreact and talk to your kids, and there is a balance between having resilience and being able to withstand. I mean, I had pretty good resilience as a kid, but I didn't like it. I learned very quickly through my faith and through my family that people are just mean and they say things. And so you shouldn't take it personally, but not all kids are built that way. So we have to teach them that, how we respond to people sometimes will change it, because we can say things that will encourage bullying.
Any other questions?
Yes, here.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for coming here and for that presentation. Thank you so much for that. And I have a quick question for one of your points that you mentioned, that some of the kids, they really don't know that they are bullying.
Yeah.
And some of the other kids, they really are not aware or not realizing that they are really bullied. But we're going to focus on the one that enjoy bullying the others. Actually, even I have my son, one of them. I'll give you a life example. He hitting the siblings, and I'm telling him I'm trying to investigate why you are doing this. He said, I'm doing this for fun. I'm not trying to bother them. I'm not trying to hit them, but I like to hit them for fun and see them getting upset. Well, some kids might feel this is a game and this is okay, and you mentioned that being resilient, and that's the way it is until they burst into a worse situation. Can you expand a little bit and give life example of that kind of things? And one of them actually is my son.
Okay, so your question is what to do with a child that is enjoying hurting other kids?
Correct.
that's a tough question. It really, some of it may be beyond your ability. Maybe there'd be some counseling in there that would be required with the child. But maybe if a kid can learn, pull the other kids and say, look your siblings are not enjoying you hitting on them. I had a friend in elementary school that did exactly that. We'd play a game and I'd beat him and he'd hit me. You always win. And he'd hit me on the leg or hit me in the arm or something. And I finally said, that hurts. Stop doing that. And that kid learned, okay, this isn't a good idea. I'm not getting, what I want. But some of it, if you step in and you monitor the kids and you can't get any solution, then maybe it's time for some kind of outside counseling with that child, because there are some kids who find joy in hurting other people, and that's not a normal thing. Especially if you've redirected it several times and they still don't seem to get the idea that this is not the right thing, then it may be time for some counseling or some consistent consequences or removal of, you don't want to, if a kid's hitting, I don't think hitting them is the right thing to do, but some kind of, okay, we can't keep our hands together, then I guess we're not having this video game. We're not having these toys, or you're not allowed to play with your cousins or whatever it is until you can show me that you can, behave yourself civilly, but this is not acceptable. And I think if you're consistent with them over time, it's going to change. Some of it's developmental. Kids are can be aggressive. Some of them, at the elementary age particularly, but they should grow out of it, or they should learn, that this is unacceptable. And you're right, that'll catch them in schools for sure. If they're doing it at home.
He's 5 years old, but
yeah. So some of it his age, 5 years old. Some of it, 5-year-old. They just need to be taught, and then they'll get over it. They'll outgrow it. And sometimes kids are just kinesthetically. Maybe he needs to go run around a little more outside and get on that playground and swing and stuff, because some kids just have all this energy. They don't know what to do with it. We sit them in a classroom for 10 hours.
I think we lost you a little bit, Mr. Rushton. I was going to make a quick comment on that too, because I have a daughter who has a lot of tendencies to be a little bit more aggressive. And as she got older, when I couldn't do the running and all those things outside, one thing that was really effective for our family was we talked a lot about, well, how do you think it makes someone feel? And we talked about feelings and how as a family, we are our safety, right? We are a refuge from others. And so we would never know if our brother or sister was being made fun of at home. And so when they come home, being made fun of and hurt by our own family is devastating too. So there's no refuge. So as a family, we work to make a refuge. And then what I would have them do is every time that they acted out toward each other, I had them write their sibling a note of the things that they loved about them and appreciated about them. And then I had them apologize. So that might be beneficial for them. And then that way, I think Mr. Rushton had earlier spoken about how sometimes kindness isn't natural for everyone. And I felt that that was teaching her how to see how her actions were affecting people. And then she had to be accountable for her part in some of the development of other people's emotions. And so hopefully that might be helpful to you and your family as well. Did anyone have any other questions?
No.
You guys had a wonderful session. We appreciate Mr. Rushton. We're going to take a little break if no one else has anything else they'd like to add, and come back and talk about academic failures in a little bit so that you guys can be super successful in school. So any other last minute things? No? All right. It was so wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much for participating. And thank you so much, Mr. Rushton. Could everyone give him a wave or a high five to say thank you? Awesome.
You can give him an emoji.
Oh, that's even better. An emoji is perfect. I love it. Oh, all the thumbs up. We really appreciate you. Mr. Rushton, any final words?
I would just say that the best thing to do is just talk about what's going on. Keep your parents informed. And if everybody knows what's going on, then it's not some secret thing. And everyone, communication is the most important thing. And I encourage parents to do that, and kids, because nobody wants to be silently bullied. And that's the problem that I think we address the most, need to address, because teachers cannot be everywhere. They need to know what's going on.
Mamadou.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, maybe he didn't have a question. All right. Well, go ahead and turn it back to you, Dr. Ip.
Any question? Okay, so this is a first session. We should have another session about academic performance, right? Okay, so we thank you all for this attending the first session. May God bless you all, protect you all, and let's go to the next session with Mr. David about academic performance to promote yourself in school and achieve successful academic year this year and coming years till the end of your life, inshallah. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, this one is more fun for me to teach. Bullying is kind of a sad topic because nobody likes it, but maybe I can share some things that'll help you, because nobody wants to be unsuccessful in school. So let me see if I can pull up my next slideshow. You know, just like bullying makes us sad, well, when we don't do well in school, we're even sadder, I think, because we spend so much time at school. We learn so much as kids, and I want to help you be successful. And some of this stuff, well, I promise mostly what I share with you is not just good for you in elementary or middle school or high school, but it's good for people in college, and it's also some good life skills. So I'm hopeful that some of what I share with you will help you be successful in whatever goals you set. The first thing I want to talk to you about is a little bit what's called balance. And balance is sometimes we're so into one thing that we let everything else go. Sometimes we love sports so much that we spend all our time playing basketball, but then our grades go down. But the same thing could happen in school. Maybe sometimes we spend all our time with our homework that we don't spend time with our family or doing some things that we enjoy doing, even though we may enjoy school a lot. It's just really important that we find a balance in our lives, because when we're balanced, we're not as stressed and we can be more successful. And sometimes you have to put something away for a little bit of time to get a rest from it, to go do something else. So it's really important to find a balance in your life. You can overdo everything. You know, we cannot live without drinking water. If you guys go more than 3 days without drinking water, you will die. But by the same token, if you drunk 2 gallons of water in one day, you would die too, because too much of a good thing can hurt you. So as important as water is, if you drank too much of it, it'll make you sick. And that's kind of the way our lives are. If we do anything too much of it, it makes us not well. Sometimes students assume there's some magic trick or shortcut to time management. And time management means how we use our time. Where do you spend your time? We all get up in the morning and go to school, and then we come home and do things. And on the weekends, we do things. Time management is important, because most of the time, if we don't learn how to figure that out, then we get behind. Have you ever woken up and you're in class and the teacher says, I need you to turn your math homework in. You're like, oh no, I forgot. And that is not a good feeling. In fact, I have that nightmare still to this day. If I'm stressed about something, I'll have a dream about not turning in my homework, and then I almost immediately wake up. And it's a stress dream, because that's a stressful situation when you haven't done something that you're supposed to do for school. And so one of the ways to fix that is to think about it in advance. One of the things I did learn in school real early on, as soon as I got my homework, if I had 10 minutes before the bell rang, I would start working on it immediately and just get a good start on it. And that would get me ahead. Sometimes I could even get my homework done before the school bell rang. and I didn't have to take it home. So time management is important. We have to be aware of the things that waste time, and we have to reduce them. There's nothing wrong with video games. My sons love video games. They have all the old video games, and my oldest son, second oldest son, loves VR, virtual reality. He puts these goggles on his head and he can play games that look almost like you're in a different world. But he knows that he's only allowed to play those things on the weekend, because during the week he has school. And so if he doesn't get his schoolwork done, he can't play his video games. Sadly, sometimes I have kids that come into my office and they're really tired and they're not doing their schoolwork and they're sleeping in class. And I'm like, why are you sleeping in class? Well, I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning playing video games. I'm like, oh my goodness, are you supposed to be playing video games at 2 o'clock in the morning? No. Well, I don't think you should do that anymore. You're not going to do well in school if you're playing video games all night long. And that's an example of wasting time. You should be sleeping, not playing video games. And it's fun at first to be up late at night sneaking video games. But when you go to school and you can't stay awake and you don't get your work done and your parents find out, not a good thing. All right, so we have to eliminate time wasters. There's a fine line between helpfully unwinding between periods of intensive study and wasting precious hours. And I do for something, and then I'll take a break. Maybe I'll look at Facebook for 5 minutes or something, and then I go back to it. And so games, then you're not using your time well. All right, find tools that work for you. Now, some of you, maybe you don't have a phone, but you can write down the things that you need to do before you go home at the end of the day. And I know some teachers put it on the board and they'll put, these are the things that you need to do. So if you write it down, you'll have it for later, because you know what, even adults can't remember everything. We have to write it down. I really like my phone because I'll put notes in there, or I'll set an alarm so I don't forget something. I've known for months about this presentation. If I hadn't put it on my calendar and then thought about it way in advance, I might have forgotten about it, because I've known about it for 2 months. Who's going to remember 2 months from now unless they write it down? I can't. So maybe you have a big wall calendar. You can't see it on your screen, but across the kitchen table from where I'm sitting is a big wall calendar that my wife uses to put all the important dates of things that have to happen, and whose birthday is coming up, and doctor's appointments. And then I think my daughter loves to cross out the days when they're done to show that time is moving. So use calendars, use a planner, use a phone, use just a piece of paper and a notebook or something, but make sure it's somewhere where you can find it. Everybody uses different strategies that work. I don't do well with paper. I write something down and it gets lost. And I did that for years. I'm like, where's my binder? Where's my planner? Where's my whatever? But now that I keep everything in my phone, I'm not going to lose a $500 phone. I'm more careful than that. So I always have it, and I can push a little app and there it is, what things that I need to do. So find what works for you. And as you get older, that will help you, and you won't be so stressed out, because you know what? Work is waiting to the last minute. That's an expression. Work is waiting to the last minute. If you can to do it a little at a time, it'll be a lot easier. What things that I need to do. All right, here's one that's kind of important: choosing extracurricular activities wisely. Sometimes we want to do everything. We want to do band, we want to do music, we want to do the chess club, we want to do the drone club, we want to do academic club. There's lots of wonderful activities, but you can fill your calendar so full of activities that you don't have time to do anything, and you won't be successful at all those activities. So maybe you're just better to take one or two, one that you really want to do. Even if you're trying to get into a good college someday, it's better just to be really good at one thing than mediocre or not very good at everything. Even the jack of all trades that we talk about is not as good as it used to be. You're better off being an expert in something. If you're better than everybody else at doing something, people are going to pay you a lot of money to do it. It doesn't even matter what it is almost. If you're better than somebody, most people at doing something, people will pay you to do it. That's just something to think about. So anyway, choose those extracurricular activities wisely. Some things that I find sad, because in my church, I'm the branch president. And sometimes I'm sad because kids will choose extracurricular activities and I never see them because they're gone every Wednesday night, or they can't do what we call morning seminary, or they can't do weekend activities with the church because they're always busy in their things. And I'm not saying it's bad that they're doing bad things. I'm just saying they're so busy that they don't get to participate in maybe what they feel is the most important thing, their church. So be careful with those activities that you choose. If they take away from your church, from your family, and from your school a lot or more than they should, then maybe you're doing too much. And I know some of you are young and you're not really thinking about that, but you will eventually. You get to middle school and you get to pick all kinds of fun things to do. Just be careful. Don't take too much. All right. And I talked about sleeping. You shouldn't be up at 2 o'clock in the morning playing video games for sure. Early teens and preteens and you guys, you got to get enough sleep. If you're grumpy in the morning because we're up all night, you're going to be sleeping in class. Even if you're still awake, you can't focus and concentrate if you haven't had enough sleep. So get lots of sleep. And you know what? Kids need more sleep than adults do. So if you're going to bed at 9 o'clock and you're getting up at 6, that may not be enough sleep for you. For an adult, it'd be enough. So go to bed early. And then when you get up, you'll be rested. If you can't focus and you can't concentrate, you're not going to do well in school. So get a good rest. This one is kind of interesting, and it might be a little more for older kids, but sometimes parents do too much for kids. They're called helicopter parents. It's like they won't let them try anything for themselves. They answer all their phone calls, do everything for them. And then kids don't learn how to do things and make mistakes. Sometimes learning is making a mistake. But see, the thing is helicopter parents and even good parents don't want you to make the same mistakes they made. So sometimes they will so structure your life that you never make any mistakes, but you never learn anything either. And so there has to be a balance there. And so parents have to be careful, because what happens when you send them to college and you've done everything for them, and now they have to do it for themselves and they don't know how. One of the things that happened in elementary school from last year is we had lots of virtual learning, and we have what were called online testing to see how well kids are doing. And sadly, some of the parents were doing the work for the kids. Could you believe that? So we really didn't know how the kids were doing. They had all these perfect reading scores because the parents, trying to do right by the kids, were doing their work for them because they didn't want them to fail. And now we have kids in the next grade that don't do things, and yet all their scores make it seem like they can't. So you should do things yourself if you can. Nobody should do anything for you yourself. And that's a good rule to live by. That's called self-reliance. It's important. All right, here's one that sometimes we just don't do. You know what? Believe it or not, teachers want you to ask questions. Do you believe that? Sometimes teachers will say, are there any questions? And everybody just kind of sits there. And what is a teacher to do except to move on to the next thing? It's okay to ask questions. You're not dumb for asking questions. Don't worry about what other kids are saying in the classroom. If you don't ask questions, how are they going to know if you know what they're teaching? You understand it. So ask questions, even if you think they're silly questions, they're not. Because you know what? Teachers want to know that kids are learning, and they don't always know unless you ask. Teachers appreciate it when you ask, and they like it when you try. Studies show that you learn more when you study the same material 2 or 3 ways with a time delay between study methods. And this may be more effective as you get older, but it works when you're in elementary too. What they're saying is if you're just doing it, you read something and then you take a test, that's not good enough. When I was in college, I was a courier. I was in the car all the time. So I would record all my work And I was in the car 6 hours a day, so I'd play a tape. And it was great for foreign language, but it was like audio flashcards. And so I was making money and studying at the same time. And you can do that too. You could write it on a piece of paper on a flashcard, or you can study with a friend or somebody at school at recess. If you just study before the test, you're not going to do well. It doesn't stick. So practice different ways. Rewrite the answers, write it 3 times, chunk it out, do it a little bit at a time, and I promise you'll do better when you study. And this is kind of the one that I talked about before. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to do assignments. You know, these slideshows that I've made for you guys, I didn't do them last night. I didn't do them this last week. I did them 3 weeks ago. And then I went over them so that I have them. So make sure that you take lots of time. As soon as you get an assignment, start on it or do a little bit. Don't wait till the last minute. If you're given 2 weeks to do a science project, don't tell your mom the night before the science project's due that I've got a science project tomorrow. That nothing will send your parents into a tizzy than knowing you got a big assignment the next day, because they have to go get the supplies and try to help you with you. Take your time. Do not procrastinate. If you can learn that one thing, don't wait till the last minute. There's an old Benjamin Franklin saying, time saves 9. In other words, if you do it right away, if you put a stitch in now, it won't tear out where you have to put 10 in later. So just a little bit at a time. This says use smart test prep, which means we can create practice tests. We can study with friends. We can quiz each other. You can hand your flashcards to other people. Just do it with someone else. And don't just think because you read it one time, that's going to work. You got to do it more than that. Here's another one that's important. Eat well. If you forget breakfast in the morning, your tummy's going to tell you about it later. You got to eat before you come to school, or eat the cafeteria lunch. Otherwise, you're going to be thinking about how hungry you are rather than math facts. Really, learning to read is funny. The best way to learn how to read is just to keep reading. Did you know that? You can learn how the sounds go. You can learn the letters. But if you want to read, you just got to read better and more. And you have to think about what you're reading and stop every few pages and think about it. Just because you can read the words on the page doesn't make you a good reader. That's called fluency. And teachers like to hear you read well. But if you get to the end of the page and teacher says, what did you read? And you go, I don't know. That's called comprehension. And if you don't have comprehension, then what's the point of reading? We read to learn, or even for entertainment. But how do you entertain yourself if you don't know what you read, except looking at the pictures maybe? So make sure you think about what you're reading. Maybe write it in the column. That you've never seen before. I get home. If I do my homework assignment, I'm going to play one video game. If I finish all my homework, I am going to watch my favorite TV show. Sometimes we have to reward ourselves when we do good things, or we might not do it. And it's nice when we do things because it's just the right thing to do. But sometimes we have to have those what are called extrinsic rewards, those outside rewards that kind of motivate us to help us. We can set up our own rewards to kind of help us through the day. I know we're not thinking maybe so about college, but when you get older, when you're talking with your parents, think about where you're going to go to school and how much it costs and whether it's really the best school for you. Because sometimes we pick schools just because it's a good name versus maybe we want to go into engineer or something, and that school is great for, the sciences, but not engineering. So just be careful about that. Write your goals down. You know, when I write my goals or type them on my phone, I almost always accomplish them. If I don't write them down, then it's just a dream, something I think about and forget about. Write down your goals, make them. Sometimes it's simple. Today, I'm just going to listen to my teacher and then see if you accomplish. There's no greater feeling really than accomplishing something that you set out to do. There's not much greater feeling than knowing that you reached your goals. And put them in order of what's important. Setting a goal, I will play 5 video games today, is probably not the kind of goal you want to set. You're going to do that anyway. Set some goals that are going to help you, not goals that are just going to waste your time, like what we talked about before. Be careful of your friends. We talked about this in the bullying slide. If your friends don't like to study and do homework, is that going to help you or hurt you? You ever had friends who are like, oh, let's just go play basketball. Well, you can study later. And then you go play, and then you had fun, but then you didn't find time to study. Doesn't mean your friends have to be only wanting to study books, but if they're the kind of friends that keep you from choosing the right and doing good things, they're not good friends to have. If they have bad habits, they'll probably give them to you. Peer pressure can work both ways. It can make you do things you shouldn't, or you can have friends that help you do things that you shouldn't. I was around friends that wanted to go to college, and so I went to college too. If you're around friends that don't want to go to college, you're probably not going to go, because then you're going to look different than them. And we all really want to belong. And sometimes belonging isn't as good. Do any
Okay, it looks like we have some tough technical difficulties, so hold on just a second.
I think the Wi-Fi has issues.
That's what happens when you live in the country too.
Okay.
Okay, we back?
Okay.
We are, good job.
Sorry, I lost you guys. All right. I'm almost finished here anyway. Make sure you take advantage of tutoring. If there's somebody that's willing to help you, let them help you. At school or at home. I love it when people teach me mechanical stuff and I don't have to try to figure it out myself. It's always easier if somebody's there to help you. Here's one that's really important. Learn to take criticism. That means sometimes people are going to tell you you're doing it wrong, and it's okay. Learn from that. Don't take offense. Don't be mad. Just say, okay, and try harder. Or maybe listen to their ideas. Being successful academically is more about choices than how smart you are. We've all been given gifts. You need to find out what yours are. What do you do well? Apply yourself. Maybe you don't even know yet. You're in elementary, you probably don't. You'll find out as you get older.
Screen share on.
Are we there? Can you guys see me?
Can't see you, but we can hear you.
All right, sorry about that. I'm losing some of my Wi-Fi, it looks like a little bit maybe. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that there are things that we can do to be successful, and your parents can help you. But the biggest thing we need to do is try. And we need to think about, are we really trying? And if we're really trying and not successful, then we need to get help. And sometimes we just can't do it without help. And that's okay. You know, people that are dyslexic or maybe have a learning disability or maybe mobility issues, those kinds of things, they need to get help. But only you know if it's because you're not trying or there's just something not right. And talk to your parents and your teachers. Because I've seen kids that can't read and then they find out that they have a learning disability and they just get some extra strategies and help and then they become successful. So that's really what you need to do. And I promise you, if you try, you will succeed. If your parents help you, even more so, I bet. I think that's everything that I have.
Okay.
Any questions?
I had one.
Okay.
Came in. So a lot of times, in order for us to sometimes feel like good students, we look at everyone else to see how they're doing, right? To see if I'm successful too. And so I was curious, is there another way to feel comfortable with my academics without comparing myself to others around me?
That's a really great question. It's easy to look around and see, and sometimes you could be in a class where you're quote unquote the smartest, and so you don't try very hard because it's easy for you. And sometimes you get in a class and all the kids are in, gifted and talented classes, and you're just a bright kid, and they're doing better than you, and you don't feel like you're doing as well. You need to look at the standard and compare yourself to where you were.
Thank you. That's a great point.
What the
Anyone else?
teacher wants you to do than what your classmates want. And your teacher will give you that feedback. But don't worry about what other people are doing. You worry about you. You worry about what you're being asked to do. Because even though friends are important, I promise you, your elementary friends, 20, 30 years from now, you probably won't even remember their names. You might. They may stick with you for a long, long time. But the reality is most of us don't hang out with our elementary, middle school, and high school friends. We just don't. We've moved on. We've gone another way. We've gotten older. We just don't even live in the same town sometimes, or the same state, or even the same country. So even though it's important to have friends, forever. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I have one more question, please.
Sure.
Well, the dilemma of the friends and the educations. Well, it's similar to what she asked, but I just want to give it away. So it's some kids, they might say, okay, I am not doing enough, or I'm getting these grades, or I'm not doing good in that subject, but all my friends also not doing good. So that's normal. Yeah. So now we are gonna be in the dilemma as a parents, also as a student. The subject or the grades or the successful or succeeding in that academically versus giving up friends, or I should I stick with these friends and being low grades just like them? I just want to throw it to you back and you can explain it better for us.
Mr. Rushton, can you hear us okay?
Can you hear me?
I can now. We couldn't before.
Oh, good, good. One of the things that you can do is you talk to the teacher and say, hey, how are the other kids doing in the class compared to mine? And that's okay. And a good teacher is going to know. In fact, a good teacher is going to say, hey, here's how all the other kids are doing in comparison to you. So you should be able to see whether it's because your child is not trying versus a teacher that's not teaching well. And that's one of the things that we look at with these assessments that we give. Like we have what are called MAP assessments, and it's mean tested. In other words, they test everybody in the whole nation, and they can tell whether it's you or the other kids. So they're comparing all the kids. It's not just 100%, it's everybody and where the average is. So if there's 100 people and you're in the 50th percentile, that means you're right in the middle. So always look at that. That's a good point. You just work with your teacher and say, well, how are the other kids doing on this assignment? If they all failed it, that's a failure of the teacher. If they all did well, it was probably too easy. That's the opposite. So then you got to find a balance. And then of course, what is the curriculum and what are they teaching? What do they need to know? And some kids are gifted and bright and they do well. And some kids just need more time. I have a son, he's 10 years old and he's just getting the reading thing, but he's not a stupid kid. It's just developmentally, he was a little behind the rest. So every kid is different. And it's up to us to kind of figure that out and figure out as educators and parents what we can do to help them. And we have to know our kids, but half the time we don't even know the teacher's name or what school they got. No, not quite, but it gets kind of like that. So
Very good. Any other questions?
I wanted to make a comment. You know, this goes right along. When I was in high school, actually starting in junior high, I started working early in the morning because my parents, we didn't live in a very wealthy situation. And so I had to start work. And so I would go into this bakery at 4:30 in the morning and bake until 7:30. And then I'd hurry and quickly get ready in the bakery to go to school. And I would go to school all day. And then right after school, I would have to clean up the bakery. And so by the time I was home, I was very tired. And trust me, when I was at school, I was sleepy. So I don't know if anybody has any circumstances that are like that, but what are some good tips that can help you be able to, if you have to, let's say you're raised up on someone has a farm or something, they have to get up early and do chores. What are some good tips so you can be able to keep up with your homework and still have to keep up with the demands that you may have in those type of things?
need to look at, what's called academic opportunity. We have to look at that when we're testing kids for any kind of needs. Were they in school? I mean, we can't test all the kids that missed a year of school. Some of them did. Some of them virtually just weren't participatory. And so now we've got to, catch them up. Does that mean that there's something wrong with them? No, it means they didn't have the opportunity to learn. And we, as parents and educators, need to make sure we provide those opportunities and understand the situation. And then, of course, find a balance, because we can't just excuse that and say, oh, well, they're just not going to get it. We need to, work together to try to help make it up. But, I'm telling you, when parents are involved, it's 90% of it. You get involved, know what the expectation of the teachers is, check their homework, go meet with the teacher, check in every once in a while, look at their grades online. Your kids are going to be successful. It's the ones that you can never find the parent. They don't know what's going on. Those are the ones that struggle the most, because, kids know whether the parents think it's important or not. And if they don't think it's important, the kids aren't going to think it's important, especially at the elementary level, but even in high school. Well, my parents don't care. I don't care either. So, it's what we show them and what we do that makes a difference for our kids academically.
Thank you. I had a question come in regards to disappointing parents. So this person struggles with thoughts of disappointing family and not achieving success that they want. So how can they overcome that disappointment enough to be able to prepare for success?
Well, part of the answer to that is sometimes there's, just like life, there are things that are in our control and there are things that are out of our control, and you have to determine the difference. That's the hardest part. Sometimes we just can't succeed. You apply to a college and you don't get in. Did it really have anything to do with you? Probably not. There are a million people that applied. You just weren't one of the people that were selected. Go to a different college. But if it's because you're not trying and you're not doing your best, and I think that's all anyone can ask, if you're doing your best for you, and everybody knows when they're doing their best or when they're not trying. And sometimes you have to help parents understand, Mom, Dad, I promise you I've done my best. And they know when you've been watching TV all night long instead of doing your homework. They know when, you're struggling at the table when they're working. But if you're not doing anything and you're just making excuses, then how can you blame your parents and your family when you're not successful? So really, you just got to know in your heart whether you're giving it your all. And sometimes you can't please everybody. And sometimes even parents set unachievable expectations for what they think their kids should or shouldn't do. And so sometimes you just have to know in your heart that you've done your best. Maybe you're not meant to be a doctor or a lawyer. That's okay. Not everybody is. And believe me, if everybody was a doctor, that would be scary. Nobody would ever go to the doctor because not everybody should be. So find what you're good at, apply yourself, and you will do well. And then recognize that you're going to find hiccups along the way. I love doing leather work, but I don't like it as much when people pay me to do it because it's a different standard. And that's just the way it is. So even though you may do a job that you like, when it's a job and people are paying you, it's not always going to be fun. And that's just the way it is. People don't pay you necessarily for you to have fun. People pay you to do a job and do something that they can't or won't do. And it's always nice if you enjoy it, but that's not always possible. I have about, I can answer any other questions before I cut out here. And I brought my laptop home, but I didn't bring home my charger, so I apologize. But is there any other questions or anything?
I just got one comment, when you was presenting, you say kids need to set their own reward. That is something really stick on my mind when you say that. And then I want children to know what that means, to set your own reward.
Well, and when I made this presentation, I didn't know if it was going to be elementary, middle, or high school. I mean, that's more of a high school kind of thing.
Yes.
Well, elementary kids might be able to do that, but probably themselves, that's hard to do with an 8 or 9-year-old, but that's something that you can do. That's more for older kids. So I don't know if that would apply for most of the kids that are attending. But it is ideal if a kid can figure out ways to self-monitor and make self-aware. I mean, they're going to be ahead of everybody else, even if they could figure it out early. But developmentally, that's a challenge. I'd love for my kid to take the trash out without me asking, but it rarely, if ever, happens. Even though we talk about it, we have family counsel about it, but the reality is 9 out of 10 times I tell them to take out the trash, and I'm just happy when they do it.
Great. Yeah, I just want to add it, something there, because in the military, we call the everything in life sometimes is a privilege, right? So if kids learn about like whatever they have is a privilege, they're not supposed to have those things, and set a perimeter there. Okay, like you were saying, when I get this done, I'm gonna, have a nice hamburger, or I'm gonna make me some nice cheeseburger, whatever they want to eat, or whatever, they want to play. They know like, okay, they're not supposed to have those, but the parents really struggle to bring those things in house for them to be good at school, for them to do the right thing. And, it's good for them to understand all those stuff is not free. When you say that, that's what I was saying. Yes, this is exactly what people do in military. You got those stuff is a privilege. We can take away anytime.
And it can be overdone. Rewards, we tend to overuse them anyway. We all do, because it's easier. But I guess the point of that slide is that if you can, sometimes even the privileges are difficult. And so in order to get through them, we've got to mentally trick ourselves into, okay, if I can just get this one last math problem done, I can go, take a walk or something. So
exactly.
That's kind of the point of it. If you can.
Yes. I guess we lost it.
I think, we still
But
have
this is
technical
very
difficulties.
interesting. Thank you all.
Oh, you are so welcome. Mr. Rushton, are you still there?
Behaviors. Most of us want to go to heaven, so we behave, but hopefully we're doing it because it's the higher law. We want to, whatever the other. We're all motivated intrinsically, right or wrong. Any other good questions, though? Good point. I mean, anything else?
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is very interesting for your time and explain those things to us as parents and children are listening. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being here. I find, probably the people that are in this Zoom probably not going to have a lot of the people I need to reach are the ones that aren't online, trying to learn ways to do better by their kids. The reality is the ones that I struggle with are the ones where the parents are not involved and the kids are basically raising themselves. Those are the ones that are really struggling. So kudos to you. We, as parents, we forget sometimes how much influence we have over our children. They want to please us, even if they act out sometimes around it. They don't want to be on the bad side of their mothers and fathers, even though sometimes their behavior says otherwise. Anything else?
Is there a time limit that you recommend for different grades for study habits to be in good measure?
And I wish I had a rubric that kind of, talks about that. They say attention span is 1 minute for every year old. It's no more than 30 minutes a day, really. Your kids, what they can do. It does increase as they get older.
Thank you.
I mean, 30 minutes a day is a lot. And even nowadays, people have moved away from, homework usually is just to revisit things that you've already learned, unless you're homeschooling, of course. But, they shouldn't be doing new things so much because, they could learn it wrong. Not that you couldn't teach it to them, but, so most of the homework that we give is review. It's kind of just
I would like to have a comment after he finish on that subject.
Sure. Mr. Rushton, can you hear us okay?
Oh.
Okay, I can hear you now.
The last thing I would say is just, if nothing else, have them read 30 minutes a day or read with them. If you could do that, you're going to far away put yourself and your kid ahead of the game, because reading is the most important key. Math today, you cannot do unless you can read. It's all word problems, so if they can't read, they're going to struggle, especially as they move through 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and all the way up. So just, nothing else, read with them every day. And I say that, and I don't do it every day with my kids. I should, but, so it's that ultimate goal that we do. So it's that standard that we set.
Great. We have a question from Muhammad.
Actually, it's not a question, but it's kind of a comment or a tip for everyone, so they don't have the stress over the attention level. I have 2 kids. I have 3 kids, but I have the older one that I am working with them. I have a girl exceeding my expectation, and every time I push harder, she exceeding even my expectation, even way more. And the boy is way below my expectation. So the attention span, it doesn't have a limit. It doesn't have a set rule. So don't usually you might say, oh, the attention span is 15 minutes for that child. Oh, it might be 1 hour, or might be 15 minutes, or might be even 10 minutes. So don't get stressed. Oh, it's 30 minutes. The book says 30 minutes. It has to be 30 minutes. Unfortunately, sometimes the kid cannot take more than 10 minutes. And on the other hand, I have the other one can take an hour and a half, and 2 hours. And she is going on until I got tired.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
every kid is different.
Yeah,
Every child is
every
different.
kid is different. Yeah. So that's all I want to say.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you so much. Any last minute, advice? Should public schools close and we have to homeschool again? Any quick tips on resources that you know off the top of your head that might be helpful for the kids listening today, like Kahoot and other websites that might be good for parents?
I wish I had some in front of me. I know that there are websites out there. Like if you're in Killeen ISD, all that stuff is going to be listed on their webpage. They're going to have all kinds of different, and their teachers are going to provide that kind of thing. You know, basically, I would just, you know, don't send your kid out there by themselves. You know, probably monitor them pretty well, particularly when they're online, because, you know, it's just hard on kids to be on a Zoom. Developmentally, I don't think it's appropriate. Just passed a law to offer it, so it may come back. But and I guess there's some kids that do okay with it. I mean, but most don't. They need the interaction. They need the hands-on. They need an adult right there developmentally. Those the little ones. Now that's a little different, maybe in middle and high school, but certainly the younger ones. It's just, well, we'll do the best we can. But work with the teachers if you see anything struggling, and you know that. I know they're better with technology than we were when we were kids, but I just don't find it as effective, the virtual, and the teachers really didn't. So
Thank
I
you
know that
so
doesn't really
much.
answer your question, but there's stuff listed like in Killeen ISD that can help you. Just go to cleanisd.org.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Can everyone go ahead and give a great little emoji for Mr. Rushton? Thank you so very much for all your comments.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you for all.
wonderful. We have a great generation coming up with lots of good academic, positive experiences.
Hey, Mom.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great day. I'll go ahead and turn the time back to you, Dr. Ib.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Very, thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.
Goodbye. Thank you, Imam. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.
Assalamu alaikum.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, sir. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You all take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.